Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first remote UK Azure user group. As you can see, it's been a little bit of a difficult time for everybody. I'm sure you're all aware. It's a little bit strange to be running a user group online without seeing any of you fine people. I hope you are all keeping safe and keeping well, and that everything is going as well as possible in this sort of difficult, isolated time. There's a big community, and one of the big parts of the UK Azure user group is and has always been that we help each other out, and that we give each other advice and we give each other care in our time. So I hope that by carrying on these groups remotely, we're still getting on a forum to reach out to everybody and to try and make those connections and to try and find a way through all the challenges that we're facing with our lives. This is a challenging time for me and Rich as well, mainly with this technology, which is a little bit new to us, trying to do a live stream, trying to get it to work. It's working pretty well from mine and Rich's perspective. But the other Richard Benwell, who's here to do our talk tonight, is struggling to connect. So maybe 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Song in that. And I guess that means that we'll probably all just go on mute for a brief while, and we'll try and get the connections set up and get Richard all connected. If not, then we will try our best to exhaust every single avenue we've got for getting all this connected. But you know, it's going to be a great talk, I think, about Monitor and looking after all the assets that we've got in Azure. It's an interesting and difficult thing. One of the interesting things about the cloud is what you lose when you go to the cloud, right? The ability to physically go and touch one of the machines that you used to run, watch those little lights flashing to make sure the thing is still going. There's been a few companies I've worked for in the past where literally if the hard drive lights weren't flashing fast enough, they raised a support ticket. So it's a interesting time. Pre-live, do not disturb. That's really interesting how that's just gone. It's come back. Well, isn't this enjoyable? I got kicked out of the meeting for a second, but now I'm back again. Maybe detected too much waffle. I will take that as a cue to be quiet.
Okay, wonderful, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us all. Can I just get some feedback in Q&A if you can hear us all? Anyone? Okay, just need a little bit of feedback from one of you just to let us know that you can hear the sound now.
I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, all right. Loads of feedback.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. So sorry we're off to a late start. We had a few technical issues with Teams. It's the first time we tried to use live events. I'm gonna natter on for a little bit while our speaker Richard Benwell, who I'm going to introduce shortly, loads content up. Hopefully, won't take more than a few minutes. So just to give you a bit of a background, I met Richard initially. I think it was about a year and a half or 2 years ago at the Thames Valley Group. Which he started. The guys at SquaredUp have put on some really good talks, and when Rich offered to give us a talk about Azure Monitor, which is one of the mainstays of SquaredUp, I thought, we've never had anything like this in the user group, and it just so happened that that the week before I got to use the Azure Monitor HTTP data collector API. So I figured it would be really good to start learning about the features since it's everywhere in Azure now. So I'll hand over to Rich and let him introduce himself, and looking forward to a great talk tonight.
Awesome, thanks, Rich. My name is Richard as well. Let me just get set up with the presenter screen. I have realised some people talk about drinking beer, and I'm missing a beer, which would have just rounded this off just perfectly, but I'll have to do without just the water. So hopefully, let me know if you can see that content being presented. You should be able to see my screen. Can you do that?
Yes, I believe everyone can see it now, Richard.
Great. All right. Cool. All right, I'll get going then. So, my name is Richard Benwell, and thank you for joining. We've got a really good turnout, which is fantastic to see. I'm CEO and founder of SquaredUp, as Rich Conway there was saying. Before starting SquaredUp back in 2011, I previously worked for Citrix, developing their monitoring and management tools, and I left Citrix to bring modern data visualization to the world of IT operations. SquaredUp is now a global company. As Rich said, we focus on dashboarding, both for Systems Center Operations Manager and Azure Monitor. We're headquartered and all product developments here in the UK, just outside of London in Maidenhead. And despite the economic conditions, we are still growing quickly and still hiring, which is good news for us. I'm just going to check also. I've got something telling me I've got bad network quality. Hopefully you guys can still hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Cool. All right, good. So before I get going, I've got maybe an hour's worth of content, maybe half slides, half demos. But I wanted to just actually put this up before I forget, or before you sort of hang up from the call. There's a really nice sort of timely event coming up, which is next week, so next Tuesday. There's this Azure Monitor virtual series from Microsoft themselves. So that's Shiva there, who's essentially the top dog when it comes to Azure Monitor in Redmond, and based on the content there, that's going to be a really good event to follow. I'm going to give you my sort of definitely unofficial take on Azure Monitor. So if you want the official take on Azure Monitor, then I really suggest marking that out in your diary. That looks like sort of 3 hours. Well worth it. Another one, just before I forget, is just on our blog. We have a 9-part blog series covering pretty much every aspect of Azure Monitor, with a couple of our tech evangelists there. So if my presentation today kind of leaves you wanting more, or has a kind of couple of gaps, then please do go head over to that. We're sort of taking an approach there of the sort of zero to hero. So for a lot of us, we were focusing on System Center traditionally. So a lot of us have had to move over to Azure Monitor, and there's a bit of a sort of learning path there that we've shared for everyone else as well. So hopefully those 2 resources will be pretty useful, and I'll mention those at the end as well. When I've given this sort of talk, or a sort of a very sort of short version of this talk at a couple of events, so Ignite Orlando and Ignite London earlier this year, I'd normally do a bit of a hands up poll. Obviously that doesn't work very well over Teams, which is a bit of a shame. But I thought I'd still ask those questions and sort of show you the sort of response I get. So the first question I ask is, who here is using Azure in production? And this is the sort of answer I get. Presumably this sort of reflects most of the people on this call today, right? This is the Azure UK user group. I'd expect most of you are using Azure in production, right? So that's great. Everyone's got Azure. That's really good news. Then I ask a follow-up question, which is, who's mastered their Azure monitoring? And I've asked this like time and time again at a few events now, and this is the response I get. It's really, I guess, concerning. I guess it's why a lot of people come along to these talks and sort of want to learn about Azure Monitor. So hopefully together we can address this and get on top of our Azure monitoring a little bit more than we are today. Why do we struggle with Azure monitoring? There's a few different reasons, and I guess unfortunately pretty much every single talk I've given and I've seen about monitoring always has to say, like, why should we monitor? Why should we bother monitor? And that just reflects the fact that we're not necessarily always doing as much of it as we should do, and not necessarily doing it the way we should do it. It's not sort of working for us. But there are obviously really, really important reasons to think about monitoring. I think of it a little bit like this, just in terms of some dependencies and order of events. Obviously, you've got some sort of goals with your application. You got sort of set out to achieve something by building that application and running it in the first place. So with those goals in mind, you obviously want to be in control. So taking actions. You can only really take actions in response to information, right? You can't sort of drive blind. You need to be aware of actually what the current situation is and take action in response to that to achieve those goals. So awareness is around knowing what's happening, and observability is actually the underlying sort of data that you can get awareness from. So just some dependencies going from sort of goals all the way through to observability, which is sort of a bit more of a buzzword these days than monitoring. If we put that into the context of monitoring, really we're talking about awareness and observability. So observability being the underlying data that is available about what's going on. Awareness is then surfacing that data in a useful way, and obviously that allows you then to control and take actions in response to achieve those goals. So classic sort of kind of corny car example, right? We're driving a car to arrive at our destination, generally with some different sort of qualities. We want to arrive there safely, efficiently, comfortably, quickly, and so on. We're obviously driving, so we're changing speed, changing direction, maybe stopping to refuel, servicing if it gets really bad. To do those, we absolutely need to know what's going on, and we can't drive without any kind of awareness of what's going on around us. It would be kind of ridiculous. So a dashboard, yeah, and of course a windscreen, knowing on what's sort of going on there in the real world, and that's all underpinned by observability, right? So you can't build a car, an engineer building a car, it'd be a terrible car if it just had no observability. You could know what speed or direction, or whether you needed to change gear, or whether you're running out of fuel, right? That'd be ridiculous to have a car without that level of observability. So that's sort of how it sort of kind of maps onto a real world situation. In an IT sense, we typically express goals like this, sort of uptime, performance, success or sort of failure rates for our users, security cost, and they might all be wrapped up in an SLA, a service level agreement. Obviously, we're all living in a world of managing IT, so we're all used to the control bit, right? We're going to scale up, we're going to reconfigure, we're going to deploy a new version with some bug fixes. We're going to maybe sort of do a failover or restore some data. So we're very used to the control bit. But really, again, you can only really be properly in control if you have that awareness of what's going on. And typically in an IT world and with monitoring, that's through dashboards to sort of really understand the big picture, alerts to be notified of a change, and sort of analysis or reports to allow you to dig in and understand exactly what's going on. And underpinning those dashboards is, again, observability, right? So the sort of underlying raw data that's coming out, like does your application have metrics that can be collected and observed and surfaced into dashboards? Does it have logs telling you what's going on? Can you trace something end to end? So we absolutely need monitoring. If you've built an application, you can't monitor it, you're not really in control, and you're probably not going to achieve your goals with that. The other part of the problem with monitoring, of course, is why should you in particular care? And this is the classic problem with monitoring, is that no one really does care enough or is in charge of it. If you're the business, obviously you care about the goals. And if you're really truly are a DevOps team, you're in great shape, because as a DevOps team, you're a single owner. That's the whole point of the DevOps team, right? You have to deliver this for the business. You are in control. You've got to go do the monitoring. You'll build that awareness and the observability into your processes and your stack. So that's why sort of that really kind of pure DevOps team does work so well. Typically, though, often we're still broken down to those classic separations of sort of ops or site reliability engineers, maybe, who really need to work backwards from those business needs, right? That you're trying to deliver this application and make sure it hits those SLAs. You will work backwards and make sure you have the information that you want out of the underlying platform. Often the real problem, and I can say this because I was one, real problem is the developers, right? Because they love writing awesome code, chucking it out, it works brilliantly. They then sort of forget about this really, really important bit, right? You can't just develop an application that does something whizzy without it being observable and surfacing that awareness of what's going on, so you can hit those business goals. So sort of the message for the developer is, do you already write awesome code? Great, but be more awesome by making it observable as well. And that's just something that hopefully sort of developers can start to pick up, especially with monitoring built into the platform like it is with Azure. Last, just sort of other persona who might be on the call today. You might not be a developer or an SRE or something like that. You may be responsible for multiple applications running on say your Azure platform, and in that case you're typically going to be something like a cloud architect, right, where you have similar concerns but they're across multiple applications on behalf of the business. Are you in control of your costs across all of your Azure applications? Are they secure? Are they performing well? Are you being able to do this efficiently and consistently across all your applications? So I expect many of you will probably sort of put yourselves in that category as well, where you're not necessarily responsible for one application, but you are needing to sort of surface this information across many applications. So that was my little pep talk about why we need monitoring. Hopefully we're sort of teed up there. So I guess the next question is why Azure Monitor? There are other monitoring tools out there. So looking at Azure Monitor, the benefits, the reasons why is it's best for Azure, right? It's the monitoring tool baked into the platform, designed for Azure, very specifically tied into Azure and all the sort of platform features. Given how quickly things change in Azure, the most likely place you're going to find support for new services that come into Azure is going to be Azure Monitor. It's also cost effective. It's not entirely free. I'll touch on cost a little bit. A lot of it is, but it's certainly a lot more cost effective generally than a separate third-party commercial tool. So you do have third-party tools. They can help you with your Azure monitoring. The benefits here are typically that you probably already have them. You might have already one of these tools or a similar tool in your organization. So you're probably thinking about whether you should use that instead. They're cross-platforms. They have that nice feeling of maybe being able to do more than just this sort of one situation on Azure. And they're often more feature-rich than what you're going to find baked in with Azure Monitor. There is a lot going on with Azure Monitor. You'll probably find a little bit more going on in some of these dedicated tools, but again, not in the context of just Azure. It's not really a either or this one. It's not Azure Monitor or that tool you already have. You are going to need Azure Monitor because it is going to be performing that platform level monitoring. It's the monitoring that's baked in. That's where the data is going to come from. You might need to send that somewhere else, but you're certainly going to need it, and you're going to be utilizing those built-in Azure monitoring features. You may also then choose to sort of use your third-party tools, right? Especially if they're sort of vendor neutral, or give that sort of overall monitoring solution that you need. The decision point for me is probably that area in the middle where Azure Monitor can do some of those things that those other tools do. Perhaps not in a as a overall sort of as feature-rich solution, or not able to do it across different stacks, but certainly can do it. So two in particular that I'll touch on today is sort of APM type features, so application performance monitoring, and log analytics. So Azure Monitor has those capabilities. They're baked in. I'll leave you to decide whether you want to go down that route, or a third-party route, or maybe a mix of both. All right, so that's sort of the preamble out of the way. We'll get sort of hands-on now a bit with Azure Monitor. This is the slide you'll see in the documentation, or the diagram you'll see in the documentation. It's pretty much the diagram you see in every single Azure Monitor talk. Someone's going to put this up in front of you. It sort of captures what is there. I always find it a little bit confusing. It's a bit sort of bewildering. There's lots of different things on the right-hand side, lots of different things to learn about. Obviously got metrics and logs underpinning it. There is a lot to Azure Monitor. The logs and the metrics are fundamental. I'll touch on those more later. But really, essentially, everything on the right is underpinned by either a collection of logs or the collection of metrics from the Azure platform and your application. On the right-hand side, there's a lot there. I don't necessarily see all of those as monitoring. So auto scale, for example, I feel is a little bit more in that kind of control, right? You're automating your control in response to monitoring. But the sort of the big dogs, the really important features in Azure Monitor here are application insights, super powerful. Log analytics, again, massively powerful. The metric analysis is just sort of pervasive, so that's being able to graph and analyze the performance metrics out of the platform. So those are the three really important features I want to really kind of call out from this slide. But of course there are others that are important to monitoring. So you want to receive alerts about this stuff. You want to dashboard this, and workbooks are a really sort of interesting alternative to dashboarding that we'll look at. So there's a lot going on already on that slide. Now, my job isn't actually to use Azure Monitor day to day in my role. I normally sort of dip into it every now and again for sort of demos, looking at new features and so on. And actually that kind of helps me approach Azure Monitor with a fresh pair of eyes often. Just every time I look at it, I sort of have a fresh look at it. And I find navigating Azure Monitor really hard. I find it hard both in terms of sort of conceptually and the documentation, but also within the Azure portal. It can be absolutely a bit of a maze, and you can get very easily lost. I guess that's true of the Azure portal in general, but certainly with Azure Monitor, there's so many different pieces, and as Rich Conway mentioned there, it is popping up everywhere, and you can get very lost trying to find what's where and kind of what does what. It's changing all the time. This maze is sort of changing all the time. Things change name a lot with Azure Monitor, it has to be said. They can be moved around, they can be consolidated, and often every time I dip back into the Azure portal, things look different, or I get a little bit confused about what's where. There are absolutely dangers in this maze. You can very easily spend budget, and I'll sort of cover a couple of those when we sort of navigate through this. But there is an amazing world out there. So if you sort of do navigate this maze, there are some great benefits. Now, just jumping.
Rich,
yeah.
just a small request from someone to minimise the Teams window, just to maximise the screen real estate. Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, there you go, cool, perfect, thank you. That's a good tip. So when I was thinking about navigating Azure Monitor, it's like a bit of a maze. It's changing all the time. Definitely dangers, but there's some great stuff there. And if you're thinking that sounds familiar, you're not alone, and you're absolutely right. So today we are going to be running the Azure Monitor maze. It's very similar. We've got different zones. There's a lot to go on there, and there's some great things to find, and there's some great dangers. But we are going to be running the Azure Monitor maze today. So what have we got? App Insights, fantastic. We'll cover off that. Dashboards we'll look at. The platform metrics and logs we'll look at. Workbooks we'll touch on. Log Analytics we'll look at in detail. Insights, we won't cover so much. I'll just point that out just when we tour around here. Monitor, now I put Monitor here, which is strange because the whole thing is the Azure Monitor maze, but there is a thing in the portal called Monitor. So we're going to sort of work out what that is and why we should go to that sort of different zone. And we have alerts, of course. So we're going to have a bit of fun. We're going to run the maze. I'll take you some different zones. We'll find out sort of how to navigate through them, how to get to those sort of gems that are lying there and avoid those dangers. The best way to navigate a maze is to understand how it was built and what was the sort of thinking behind the maze. And so what I'm going to do just on this slide is give a very short history of Azure Monitor, and that a little caveat there is this is totally unofficial. This is just built from my sort of personal observations. I've been looking at this stuff for a decade. I remember when the Azure portal was the Silverlight portal and so on. So this is just built up from what I've seen both in Azure and other products that are going on in Microsoft. So close to my heart, where actually SquaredUp started. So before really Azure was widely adopted, we started building dashboards on top of the System Center Operations Manager, so the monitoring tool that everyone has for on-prem. But what happened within Microsoft is that the team that built SCOM moved on to build something at the time that's called Op Insights, and that was really sort of a standalone service that really was something very similar, looking to Splunk at the time, but because it was an evolution in some ways from, or certainly the team behind it were coming from the SCOM world, it was very, very orientated towards server monitoring, and it was even pitched at some point as a replacement to SCOM, which it really wasn't. It was much more of this sort of Splunk-like log analytics database. So that came out as a service. I'm not sure of the time frame. I haven't got the sort of notes there. And actually, in parallel and completely separately, as far as I'm aware, Microsoft came out with another interesting service, which was App Insights. And that was done independently, and again on a very different portal, and was focused on really APM type functionality. So looking at your application in detail end to end, from the browser code all the way through to your web code through to the database. And then you had a third different team within Microsoft, who were really the Azure platform team, who were obviously baking in some monitoring into the platform. So if you went to the Azure portal, you would see some monitoring baked in, and Op Insights and App Insights were totally separate. Op Insights got renamed to OMS, so Operations Management Suite, and sort of gained a little bit of momentum in terms of the number of different things they were trying to build into this. And this really was the sort of origins, I guess, of what would become Azure monitoring. But certainly they were thinking very much about sort of monitoring within OMS. And they rolled in some other things like automation, backup, and that was all part of this Operations Management Suite. Meanwhile, the platform team came out with a nice new shiny portal, so we're starting to see graphing and some other pieces built into the portal there. And the App Insights team eventually integrated into the Azure portal. So App Insights started to appear in the Azure portal, and their separate portal was deprecated. And the same thing happened with OMS. They didn't kill OMS. They repurposed some of the pieces there. But what happened is they moved the logging piece of OMS into the Azure portal. But the sort of point I want to emphasize here is this stuff was happening individually, separately, in parallel, and that really flows through today into what you see in the portal, which sort of explains why some of it feels still very fragmented, as if it's come from 3 different teams in 3 different places, because it has. A really interesting thing happened with App Insights, which is they developed an amazing database technology for massive scale logging and data collection. I'm sorry, they just spun out the automation there. But this database called Kusto proved to be very capable. They used it within Microsoft for massive applications that they ran within Microsoft. I'm not sure whether this is one particular, but if you think of things like Xbox Live or Hotmail, they were using sort of App Insights on those sorts of services, and it was proving to be very successful. So they actually took that data platform, that Kusto data platform, and made that the foundation for Log Analytics as well, rather than the OMS platform. So you're starting to get some consolidation consolidation and integration. And then finally, this was just trying to remember 2018. So the Ignite 2018, they finally announced Azure Monitor as a brand, really first. They announced Azure Monitor as a brand, and then they really sort of drove the integration in the portal under that brand. And so really, it's only been probably a year, sort of just about sort of 18 months that they've actually been building something called Azure Monitor and really sort of working towards that integration. There have been some great steps. So alerting, for example, is now integrated across the board. You're still going to see the separation of those sort of three different aspects of monitoring, and that explains, as I say, a lot of the maze and a lot of the inconsistencies we see. So hopefully that gives a little bit of useful background, and obviously there's some exciting things ahead with Azure Monitor as it does get more consolidated and mature. As I say, underpinning pretty much everything we're going to see today is the logs database that originated, I believe, from that App Insights team. It was a new database technology they developed, designed originally for App Insights. Think Splunk, Elastic, so on. It's sort of SQL-like. It's massive scale. It's a really, really interesting database technology. And I don't know about you, I started developing when really there was only SQL, Oracle, and MySQL were the only three databases I knew about. These days, there are sort of dozens of databases to choose from, and Kusto is one that has proven very very robust for these particular applications. In fact, it's such a great technology, as well as underpinning now everything in Azure Monitor. It's available as a completely separate Azure service, Azure Data Explorer. And I'll show you a demo of that just very, very briefly, just to kind of give you a sense that this is a really important technology. If you're developing an application and you need a large scale database, you might want to look at Azure Data Explorer, but certainly it's going to underpin everything with Azure Monitor. There is a new query language for Kusto, hence why it's called KQL. So Kusto was the code name, the project name for this new database. I don't think it's official anymore. Officially, I think it is called Azure Data Explorer, but Kusto still sort of lives on as a sort of code name and comes through into that query language called KQL. I really like KQL. I am familiar with PowerShell. I'm familiar with SQL. And KQL just is like this beautiful blend of the two. It's really, really nice. I think if you do sort of try it out, you'll really enjoy it. I think it's probably one of the best things they've done in this area is build this database and build this language on top of it. It's very, very nice to use, great developer experience, and very powerful. There is a blog on SquaredUp.com introducing you to KQL. So it's designed for anyone with a PowerShell or a SQL background, and it kind of just takes you through how KQL compares with SQL and PowerShell. But you really, it is worth developing that skill. You'll find that a lot in the Azure portal now. And what I was going to do is just give you a quick demo, actually. I'm just going to show you the sort of very simple KQL query. So let me just hop over, first of all, to the Azure portal. I'm not going to do this, but just if I type in Azure Data Explorer. So you see we've got Azure Data Explorer clusters here. So we can go and create one of these databases completely standalone as a separate Azure service, even though it's the same technology that underpins Azure Monitor. So completely outside of Azure Monitor, we can create one of these databases and use it within our application. They've got dataexplorer.azure.com is a nice place, both as a UI to express queries and run them against Azure Data Explorer databases. But they also just have this nice public sample database where we can experiment with it. This is a mock database covering sessions at Ignite 2018. But you can see you've got some nice typical tables with fields. Right, so these fields are within that table. Here's KQL in action. It's typically within a UI like this has a sort of really nice IntelliSense, so you don't have to put too much effort or too much thinking into running any of these queries. So, for example, if I start writing conference, it's going to say, do you want the conference sessions table? Yep. It does this pipe character, so that's going to say take all the data in conference sessions and do the next thing. So it's going to do a where clause. So it's a bit like PowerShell, but sort of SQL-like operations. So where and now I can pick a field out of that table. So where conference equals, oops, don't want that, I want that, and then just the value. So let's do Ignite 2018, and again, very familiar. If I want to then order that, I pipe that through to another operation, which is order by. It suggests that's the next keyword, and then says what do you want to order it by. So let's do session title. Seems like the obvious one. So very, very easy to create these queries. Just hit run there, and across a large amount of data, I get those 2018 sessions coming back. So hopefully not too overwhelming. I'm not sure how many of you are already familiar with that, either in Azure Monitor or because you're actually using it within your application, but I absolutely recommend checking that out a little bit more. It's a really, really nice technology. So that's Azure Data Explorer and Kusto. So we've looked a little bit at the history of Azure Monitor. We've looked at what it's built with, which is Kusto. It's now time to run the maze, and we'll check out some different zones, and I'll take you on a bit of a tour. We've got probably just under an hour to do this, so I'm going to try and move as fast as possible. So the first section, we're going to go over to looking at what's built into the platform from an Azure Monitor point of view. And I'm going to just spend probably a minute on dashboards, a couple of minutes on dashboards. I'm not going to do too much, but just mainly focus on what's built into the platform when it comes to Azure Monitor. So this is probably what you're all most familiar with. So if you browse to a virtual machine or an app service, you're going to see this view here when you select metrics. The great thing about these metrics and logs is it's free, and I mean that in two ways. It's free as in it's no effort. You just get it. You don't have to set anything up. You don't have to configure anything. You don't have to create any storage accounts. It's just there. So given lots of different resources in Azure, you're going to find that monitoring tab and those metrics available. It's also free in the sense of no charge. So you don't get charged for this. It's sort of built into the cost of any resource. It is only short-term retention. It does change. I'm not sure what exactly the retention level is here. It's sort of an order of kind of days or a couple of weeks. So it's not something you can use for long-term sort of reporting or analysis. You'll find this is mostly metrics. I even get confused myself just about what logging is built in and what's sort of magically happening via sort of log analytics, but I'll try and sort of point that out as we go along. And sort of two classic examples I'm going to show you just in a demo are an app service, so IES running as a service, and virtual machines. I'm going to do this in the demo, but I just sort of call this out on the screenshot because this is part of navigating the maze. What we're going to look at is a resource. So this is not on a Log Analytics or App Insights resource. This is on just a regular Azure resource, so an app service, for example. And the key place to go is this metrics. You'll find a lot of some of the other links, either you do need to set something up or they're perhaps not what you're expecting them to be. So metrics is the reliable place to go and find this information on any resource. So let's just switch back over to the portal. And what I'm going to do first of all is just come into a VM. I'm not sure how many of you are still working with VMs or whether you moved on to containers or ideally serverless now, but at least sort of a VM is familiar to us all. So we draw down into a VM. There is the monitoring section here that I'm sure you're all familiar with. What the Microsoft team have tried to do is sort of kind of broadly make everything available everywhere you go, which can be confusing because not everything necessarily is set up right now and is available. So as I say, if you go into metrics, you will find the metrics that are baked into the platform. You're not paying for this. You're not having to set this up. They are just there. So I click on metrics. It's scoped to the resource. The namespace for the metric is virtual machine hosts. That's essentially a sort of a platform namespace. And then we can pick out any of the metrics, and these will be generally very familiar, right? So in the case of VM, these are all the VM level metrics. We're not looking at the metrics within the OS itself, so we're not looking at Windows level metrics, but this is the metrics for the VM. So it can, of course, look at CPU. So let's just pull that up. I'm not going to do too much on the metric interface here. This is sort of something you can click around and explore. It's pretty nice. You can add in multiple metrics, different little types of visualizations, and so on, and you can kind of drill down. So it's quite intuitive looking at those metrics. If I switch over to logs, which you might be tempted to do and go, great, and I also want to look at the logs for this VM, you get this screen. And this is where it starts to get a bit more complicated. So you do not have OS level logs baked into the platform. You don't get that for free. You don't get it out of the box. In order to do that, I'm just going to click enable here. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to show you the experience. In order to do that, it needs to check that the Microsoft monitoring agent running in the VM is available. I think that was just a pause there. It was just making sure that the Microsoft monitoring agent was accessible. And then it's going to ask you, well, if you do want to collect logs, you need to now set up Log Analytics. And I'll come back to that when we run to one of those other zones. So those are the two main areas you'll probably look at when it comes to monitoring in a resource like a VM. As I say, metrics out of the box, logs actually, although it appears here, is part of Log Analytics. I'm just going to zip over to a resource group that contains, it's going to contain, parts unlimited. So I'm going to, if you're familiar with some of the example Microsoft resources, why is that? Okay, let's come over to this. I'm going to come over to this app service, which is running a little slow. So this is another Azure resource. So here we're just looking at a typical Azure resource like an app service, and you're familiar with these sorts of views. Again, if we come down to monitoring, metrics you get out of the box. So here we're going to see metrics for this app service. So again, the namespace here is app service standard metrics, which kind of means the baked in platform metrics, and you're going to get things like this. So you can look at the CPU time of this app service. The logging is a slightly different picture with app services because there is some logging, I believe, so baked in. So if you're logging from your application, that's going to be collectible here. So we can specify that we do want to collect application logging. This is all a platform level feature, so not necessarily part of Azure Monitor in the sense of Log Analytics, but baked into the platform, you can collect logs from your application and put them either into short-term file system or long-term blob storage. You may be familiar with them pulling those logs out via, say, something like Logstream. What you can do, if you do a little bit like with Azure, with the virtual machines and Log Analytics, if you do want to store these, and you can send them to Log Analytics. So here we can set up what's called a diagnostic setting to essentially pump these logs over to a Log Analytics database, where we can then store them for some length of time and do some analysis on them using Azure Data Explorer. Coming back to metrics and just sort of finishing off the tour of this zone, we're just going to quickly pop into the adjacent dashboard zone. So if I just grab a graph like this, that might be useful for you, just to keep an eye on CPU. What I'm going to do is pin this to a dashboard. So I'm just going to click pin to dashboard. This I'm not totally sure about. I think what happens is it is going to store the most recent dashboard you have sort of visited, so it kind of knows what your current dashboard is. But I don't like to rely on that just because I'm not quite sure exactly which dashboard sort of context it has saved in my browser. So I'm going to just pin to another dashboard, and I'll use this as an example of creating a new dashboard. Come over to create new, give it a name. You can build this in a subscription, obviously, and then the interesting checkbox here, it actually sort of makes a default recommendation to say let's publish this to the dashboards resource group, sort of built-in dashboards resource group. You can do that, so all your dashboards are in the same place. I quite like the idea of putting the dashboard actually in the same resource group as your application. I think actually Parts Unlimited, if you deploy that out of the ARM template, because a dashboard is just an Azure resource like anything else, it could be deployed out with an ARM template and deployed into a resource group. So I quite like the idea of keeping that self-contained, right? just wipe this resource group, and the dashboard you've got for this particular application gets wiped as well. Quite like that relationship. So we're going to create a new dashboard called Azure UK within the same resource group where my Parts Unlimited resources are, and hit apply. This confused me the first time. It's created it, and I think it has also added the tile onto it. So I'm just going to come up here. I might need to refresh. Let's have a look. No, it doesn't look like it's got it, so I probably just need to refresh. Oops. Let's, I'm just going to come up to the containing resource group. Oh, come on, Azure. It's a little bit slow. It's going to make the demos a little bit onerous. There we go. Dashboards appear as that one. You can see that it hasn't appeared yet. I'm going to come back to that. Let's find out where that is. Give it one more go. So just refresh. What I'll do with the other parts of the demo is publish more things to that same dashboard. So hopefully we'll build this dashboard out. Let's see if we can get it created first. Yeah, there you go. So it's in this resource group with all of the other Parts Unlimited resources. And it is just a resource, an Azure resource like any other Azure resource. In fact, if you go to it, you kind of get this quite ugly view, and then you have to switch to the dashboard view. So there's our new dashboard, Azure UK, and that's the graph that we thought was quite interesting, so we pinned it onto the dashboard. So nothing too magical there, but what we'll do is we'll build out this dashboard a little bit with some of those other demos. So that's what you get out of the box. So everything I've shown you, you don't have to sort of enable anything new or start paying anymore, right? You can start dashboarding, for example, with those metrics that are baked into the platform. What we're going to do now is run over to another part of the maze and have a look at App Insights, and we'll have a quick look at that alerts as we do this. But App Insights is one of, I think, the most exciting Azure Monitor features. I think it's where you get most, or at least sort of time to value. So you get a lot of value from App Insights very, very quickly. Not a huge learning curve. I really, really like it. It is quite simple to get up and running with this. You need to create an App Insights instance, so that's sort of different to this baked-in platform stuff. You do need to kind of create now a new Azure resource, which is called an Applications Insights resource. What it does is monitor web applications, HTTP-based applications. So you can monitor traditional IIS running on VMs, you can monitor app services, or you can monitor serverless functions across sort of a typical array of languages, so support for each one of these. It provides you with application performance management features, so like some of those APM tools we see from external vendors. So things like being able to check the availability of your application. I love this. I'm going to show you a demo of this one in particular. I think it's probably the number one thing you should do when monitoring an application is just make sure it is available, and you're the first to know when it's not. It can also then inject JavaScript into the front-end web application and essentially run that within the user's browser. So you get what's called real user monitoring. You can actually see what the load time is in the browser. So not just the back end, you can actually see what your user experience is. It can then monitor, obviously, what's coming in through your HTTP requests. It can then do code level monitoring. So if you have .NET application, for example, it can give you the stack traces and the time spent in each method. And it can also tell you about the queries, the outbound queries you're making to databases. So given an incoming slow query, an HTTP request takes 5 seconds, you can very easily then identify the bit of code or the database query that's taking a long time. This is a huge sort of area. I'm not going to spend too much on this, but I'm just going to point you again in the right direction to show you what you get very quickly. The screenshot on the right, I'll show this in the demo, but just to point out, we're now going to be looking at a specific Azure Monitor resource, which is an application insights resource. So this is not now looking at the app service itself or the VM or the function. This is switching over to our app insights workspace. The two key pieces, although there's quite a long menu there, like there are around the Azure portal, the two ones I really wanted to highlight is availability, which is this URL ping. So again, checking the availability of your application from really any other Azure data center, and the alerts, metrics, and logs. That's what underpins the entire of App Insights. The rest is actually derived from those. So let's say something like failures, for example, is actually just giving you a prettier view on top of your logs. You know, performance is doing the same thing. It's giving you a prettier view on top of your logs. So availability is worth looking at, and then those three alerts, metrics, and logs that underpin it. So let's have a quick look at this. We'll have a look at alerts as well if we get a chance. So I'm just going to come back to my Parts Unlimited resource group, so where we have our app service, and that's where we also created our dashboard. If you want to create an App Insights instance, you can do that within any resource group. I suggest creating an App Insights instance for one particular application. I think it's kind of true of a number of different things. Easier to focus this entirely on one application rather than have one App Insights trying to manage different disconnected applications, which can be quite hard. So create an instance. I'm just going to do this just to show you what you get out of the box. Hopefully it won't take too long. I should say, Rich or Randy, I'm not looking at the Q&A, so if anything's coming up on the QA, please do surface it, and I'll try and answer any questions that I can do while we're waiting. So let's just wait for this to come up. Oh man, this is being very slow.
Sounds good. Does anybody have any questions while we wait for Azure?
This must be my internet. It's very slow.
Oh no, I think we've all been doing a lot of waiting, especially on North Europe over the last few weeks, months.
All right, so this is my Sandbox subscription here, the resource group, which actually contains the application. So I'm going to put my App Insights instance into the same resource group as my application, and I'm going to give it a name that I think can't have any spaces, and I'll put it somewhere a bit more sensible. Let's just hit create on that. Okay, so we'll come back to that. That should appear in a second, and we'll see what we get out of the box with it. There you go. Great. All right, so Azure UK. So we've got an App Insights instance now within this resource group where we have our application. Something I think when I started using Azure Monitor, I got really frustrated with was you create something like this, you're really excited to see all these APM features, and what you do is you click around and you don't see anything. There's no data like this, right? It's all blank, and it's quite hard. You can sort of lose enthusiasm for it just because you don't get to dive in and have a play with all this. I would recommend something like, say, that Parts Unlimited ARM template where it's all pre-configured for you. So you sort of set that up and leave that running for a day. You'll come in and you'll see loads of great data in App Insights. So you don't get much out of the box. It's not collecting anything. It's not connected to any app services. It doesn't automatically start monitoring anything. It's just now an instance of App Insights sitting there. The one thing you can do very, very quickly, and I'm just going to show you how to do this, is add in availability tests. So my Parts Unlimited is this website here. So I'm just going to grab that URL. So before I even monitor anything kind of on the back end, what I'm going to do is just click add test, and I'm going to monitor this application from the outside in. This is just going to be an HTTP request against any endpoint. So really anything that has an HTTP endpoint, you can check. So example URL ping test, great. What's the URL? It's that. Skip. test it from 5 different locations. So maybe where my branch offices are, hit create. And right at the bottom there, it just said alerts enabled. So what's it also going to do when it creates this is create an alert for me as well. So actually, just by doing that, I'm now going to be alerted when my application goes down or if the response time is too high. So that's all being created. If I just jump over to alerts, and we'll touch on alerts, and then we'll look at the rest of the APM features quickly. So great, I don't have any alerts. Make sure you click on the alert rules. That's where actually the alerts are defined. So what we should find in here is we have the alert rule to say if my website is down, then send me a notification. So here's the alert rule for that availability test we just created. I come in and give you a quick overview. This is probably all I'm going to say on alerts. I've got one slide sort of later if we sort of wrap up after the demos. I'll just give you a quick sort of flavour. What is really nice to say about the alerting in Azure Monitor is it is now consistent. So anything that sends alerts has this interface, and you can manage really alerts centrally across anything that's creating an alert in Azure, which was not always the case. Alerting was very fragmented as well. So it is a place where they've really invested in making this consistent. So
Rich, yeah. There's a question while we're waiting. Somebody's asking 1 app insights per application. What are we defining as an application? If I have an architecture with 10 microservices as function apps, is it okay to have all those using a single app insights?
Yeah, exactly. Never a right answer. I'm not sure what the right answer is, to be honest. I mean, I would be tempted to have individual app insights instances, just because actually one benefit of the KQL and the Azure Data Explorer querying is that you can query across app insights instances. So you can pick data out and say, okay, in this time frame, show me data from multiple different app insights, so I can get a sense of what was going on across those microservices. The downside obviously is just the overhead of management of each one of those. But again, just like that dashboard, I quite like the idea that if you were to just deprecate, remove the need for one of those particular microservices, your app insights gets removed out as well, right? You don't have to worry about then having inconsistent data, in a centralized app insights instance. So that's sort of typically the dilemma, right? The overhead of managing these things versus actually having these discrete databases of information. But as I say, one thing that they have got right is being able to query across different data sources. So don't feel like you'll be stuck only ever looking at sort of one bit of data if you do that.
Cool. Do you got one more question, and then I'll leave you in peace and let you carry on. Would you recommend using App Insights for debugging an application? I.e., if running an API locally, would it be ideal to send the telemetry to App Insights or send logs locally?
Is that locally, as in on-prem, or sort of within an application, sort of app service or something? I think with logging, it's interesting because you typically get dev level logging, right? So the developers logging to sort of really understand exactly what's going on with the application, making sure it's working as expected. And then you have the need for logging actually when it's in production. You really need to troubleshoot a particular issue and understand what's going on. And for that latter case, you need to make sure that you are surfacing the right logs into something like App Insights. So your SREs or even sort of high levels of support can very easily then troubleshoot issues from those logs. With App Insights, you absolutely can collect logs from anywhere. It doesn't have to be running in Azure. So if you do have IIS running on-prem, for example, you can upload those logs to App Insights as well. Typically, though, as a developer, you're probably just going to go to the easiest place you can find those logs. Just when you're focusing on an issue, when something's happened in production and you want to find out what happened retrospectively, then typically you're going to need them in App Insights.
Oh, I got you.
Not sure I answered the question, but there is an answer.
Yeah. Someone else is just asking, this is a quick one. I assume that the ping test can be to any HTTP endpoint, or does it have to be hosted in Azure?
No, yeah, absolutely not. I mean, you saw me just paste in a URL. So if you want to monitor the uptime of Microsoft.com or whatever, yeah, go ahead. That's what I quite like about it. So even if you're not ready to do APM and you're not necessarily even using Azure right now for those sorts of applications, you can start to use App Insights as I don't know whether people are familiar with sort of Pingdom or Alert Site or things like that. So you start doing availability monitoring against your application, raise alerts, get emails, push that into some other alerting system like PagerDuty or ServiceNow or something like that. So you can use it as a standalone monitoring tool, absolutely. All right, back to alerts. This is how alerts look. 3 different things. What's the resource you want to alert on? So in this case, it's in this particular case, it's the availability monitor, which has been created as a new Azure resource in our resource group. So when this availability monitor has a condition, then you write the condition. So whenever the failed locations is greater than or equal to 2. So a little bit of sort of redundancy there, right? So if one test from one Azure data center failed, we're not going to make or see the application as down. If it fails from 2 different locations, then we want to be alerted. And of course, you can configure that and configure a lot of different conditions there. And then action groups, the one thing out of the box here, we've got no action group selected. So you will need to go and create something to do with this this alert. And this is a space where they're developing it quite quickly. So there are some new features in here, like per subscription, you can have like an admin action group, right? So it's just going to go to the admins of that subscription, for example. Here I've got RB test. It's my email address, right? So this is just going to go straight to my SquaredUp.com email address. Or I could hit a web hook or sort of anything else that I need, some Azure automation, for example, to respond to this. To this email, to this alert. So there you go. So I've got when my availability test has 2 or more locations fail, then essentially send me an email, and you can modify the details of that email and hit save. So that's just touching on email. Alerting. Essentially, all alerting anywhere you are in Azure Monitor is going to be the same, right? For a resource, either a specific resource like an app service or a VM, or for something like a Log Analytics or an App Insights workspace, detect a condition and then hit some actions. All right, let's come back to slides. No, not slides. I'm showing you the best bit of App Insights. Let's come back to, I created this App Insights instance. What I want to do is just show you one that has been connected to an app service. So very simply, you can connect, just if I come into my App Insights resource here. And this is a good example where I've just said very simply, and I've just forgotten where you configure the where is it? Where do you configure App Insights? Someone tell me on chat if you know. It's completely just lost, gone from my mind. I'll come back to that. But one of those is where you set up the App Insights, but I've completely blanked on it. Let me come back to. That's why I was in the wrong thing. Sorry, I was looking at the App Insights rather than the app service. That's why. But in the app service, it's straightforward to essentially connect it to this App Insights instance. Once you do, you then start to get the really juicy features of App Insights. So what you get, as I say, is the logs. So if I just have a quick look at what we have in logs here. So this is now going to be logging everything that's happening with your application, depending on what you've enabled. So this will be every single HTTP request that's coming in. So if you're familiar with something like IIS logs, that's logging every single HTTP request, that's going to go into this log file. But so is code level instrumentation if you enable it. So every single method call, how long it's taking, every single SQL query you're firing off to your back end, how long that's taking. So you can really build out an amazing view of what's going on in your application. Another one, as well as looking at load going through, we're going to look at failures, so exceptions that are coming out of your Node.js function or your C# application. So we have a number of different tables here that we're going to start getting once we've enabled App Insights. So just as a fairly obvious one, if I do requests, whoops, if I do requests, run there, that's just going to show me all of the HTTP requests that come in. And essentially sort of showing that sort of IIS log. But I can obviously then start to query by failures or response times and so on. So that's the underlying data. If we just come back up here, what you get in this investigate section is sort of pre-canned KQL queries. So failed request count. So when a failure is happening, you can see here this application is working very well. It should do. It's just a sort of template application, although we, weirdly, we did have a failure here. You can show the KQL, so I can say view in logs. So I would like to see, how to query the failures or the response codes or something. You see that response count, for example, or failed request count. So if I want to show how that graph was built, I just click view in logs. It's going to come over to just that previous view with pre-populated KQL query. So a great way of sort of finding out what you can do with KQL is using this approach. I think that's just coming over to the right here, but slowly. There you go. So that's the KQL query they're using to generate that graph that we see in the investigate panel. And of course, you can modify the KQL if you want, and do some more research. If you then want to take something like this and pin it to the dashboard, you do the same thing. So anywhere you see a pin, you just kind of click it. It will put it onto that dashboard. So I'm just going to this time say, hopefully it should be just current dashboard, and that should appear on that dashboard in a second. Oh, come on, Azure. Great, so recent dashboards, Azure UK, great. So that's failed. Let's just try and find that. All right, so that's that graph is now going to be on that dashboard. It's taking a little long time, so I'm going to come back to that dashboard later, and hopefully we'll see some more stuff on it. So hopefully you can get an idea of once you've enabled this, you're going to start to see a lot of information that you can use to troubleshoot your application or sort of understand what's happening, as well as monitoring sort of what's going on the back end there. You also get sort of, with App Insights kind of out of the box once you've done this, is your analytics on your usage. So if any of you are familiar with Google Analytics, where it's telling you about how many users you've got arriving on your website, how many are new users, how many are returning users, what their flow through the application is. So you can set up here essentially steps in the funnel, so you can see whether they're sort of logging on, signing up, clicking on a link and so on. And you can start to understand your users' usage of that application. So much more sort of kind of business level view of this application and whether it's achieving what it's set out to achieve, not from a performance point of view, but from a functionality point of view. So you get that as well with App Insights. So it's a very powerful. Let's say all you need to do is enable that on an app service. I'm going to have one more go at that. Come in the app service. So enable that on this app service, for example, and you're going to get a lot of value that you can then start sort of pinning onto that dashboard. This is what I was missing. So we've come down to settings and App Insights. This is where it should say already that it's attached to that App Insights instance, right? So actually in this case, it's enabled through essentially my web config file. So in that case, it's enabled sort of by the developer. They sort of put it into the web config. Otherwise, you can just click on this button and say turn on application insights. And I really like that about App Insights. You can just browse to the resource and you hit say monitor, whether it's a function or an app service, just say turn on App Insights and it all just works. So obviously kind of recommend experimenting with App Insights is one of the first things you do if you do have a web-like application.
Rich, we've got another question if you're all right to answer it as we go along. Dippin is asking, what is the rate at which the database is able to ingest log data?
Good question. They do have SLAs for Azure Monitor and Log Analytics and App Insights. I'm not sure there is a certain latency for logs like that. It's not high. That's very efficient. Where Log Analytics and App Insights are a bit frustrating is there's quite a big latency on those alerts that I showed you. So unfortunately there is some delay, and it can be minutes before alerts are fired. Generally though, the logs are pretty fast and very high scale. There is some documentation, I don't know the numbers, but there is some documentation where Microsoft's saying, this is what you can expect in terms of kind of latency and scale of logging.
Cool. You okay to take another question now?
Yeah.
Okay, will things like funnels and user flows work if you have services split into multiple App Insights instances? Yeah,
good question. I don't know the answer to that because I don't actually use that part of App Insights terribly. I'm much more familiar with Google Analytics. Typically, what you would do with the funnels, that's your user experience, right? So typically, what you're going to do there is put that on your front end, your ultimate front end, even though that's leveraging 10 backend microservices. So it's not looking at your flows through the microservices. That those funnels are looking through at your sort of front end application experience. If you have multiple sort of front end applications, so user logs onto your corporate website and then comes off into a partner website portal and then goes off somewhere else. I think you will lose visibility there. I don't know whether you can query across multiple instances there, but typically you're going to be looking at things like they come to your website, they go to the product page, great, that's really good news. They watch the video, that's great news. Then they sign up, that's great news. And then they click through and they do something else. They download that white paper or something. So those are the sort of funnels that you typically use there. But good questions, great questions. I'll move on. Hopefully we can get through in the next sort of 10 or 15 minutes. Log Analytics. It's the big one in Azure Monitor. It's the beast. Very powerful. Use with care. And there's a couple of sort of massive kind of gotchas here. Like App Insights, you created as a new Azure resource. So you create an instance of Log Analytics Workspace is the name of the resource. And it can collect data from a number of different places. I'll show you this when we just create one quickly. You'll see that it's very, very VM centric, very, very orientated towards VMs. That's sort of where it originated. So instantly it's going to ask you, what VMs you want to monitor, whether you want to add additional solutions to collect more data from those VMs and so on. So it's really primarily designed there, originally designed to collect logs from within your VM and performance metrics at the OS level. Of course, remember with platform metrics, you don't get any OS level metrics. It can't tell you about what's going on inside the VM. It can just tell you what's happening from the VM point of view. Although it's very server orientated and VM orientated, it can now start to collect logs from other places in the Azure platform. So storage logs, you want to see what's happening with your storage, or auditing activity logs is great. So if you want to actually now audit what's going on across your Azure environment, you can set up centralized activity logging. And there's essentially additional logs being added all the time. So for example, containers, now Kubernetes, you can push logs through into Log Analytics. You do have to be careful with Log Analytics, and one in particular I'll sort of show you when we just look at the portal. The I don't know whether this has changed. It could have changed yesterday for all I know. But the last time I looked, the configuration of what data you collect is set globally sort of for that instance. So if you say, I do want to collect IS logs, or I want to collect my system log from Windows, you're going to do that for every single VM that's reporting to this Log Analytics instance. And with many of our enterprise customers who have been looking at either using this for on-prem monitoring, so sort of monitoring their on-prem servers and/or VMs, the sort of lift and shift type VMs in Azure, they've been very badly burnt by this because they experiment with it. They turn on log collection or performance data collection. They want to collect CPU. They do not want to collect CPU from every single server across their environment, at the sort of the default rate. So the last time I looked, you weren't able to configure it on a sort of VM by VM basis or a group of VMs. So be very careful about enabling logging, especially in large environments. You can also connect this to SCOM. So if you do have SCOM running on-prem for on-prem VMs, you can essentially leverage SCOM to send your data up to Azure just once through that SCOM to Log Analytics connection rather than independently from each VM. When you come into the Log Analytics instance, this is a resource in Azure. It's funny because there's a lot of things again in the side panel. The one that's absolutely critical, which is basically the whole resource but doesn't stand out necessarily, is this. That is Log Analytics. It's that thing there is what Log Analytics is. It's your database with every single kind of log coming from anywhere you want in that one single database. So again, very confusing if you're just browsing around, you click one of these things, you create a Log Analytics workspace. It can be a bit deflating because you're not quite sure what you're looking at, but it's that one section there on that panel, which essentially underpins what Log Analytics is. So let's come quickly back across. I'm not going to create a Log Analytics workspace now. It's very straightforward, just like we did with App Insights. So we create an instance. Again, you might decide, really depending on your use case here. So going back to those intro slides, if you're part of a DevOps team, you probably are looking at creating one of these again per application. You again might want to do it either per microservice or sort of one for kind of a logical application, a group of microservices. Depends really sort of where your sort of management boundaries are in general. You will be able to query across instances, so again you do have that. But you might want to set it up sort of once per logical application. If you're that cloud architect and you're responsible for sort of what's going on across your entire environment, you might be thinking about more of a centralized logging. So if you want to collect activity logs from everywhere in Azure, so you can audit who did what and when, you probably want to set up a sort of more kind of global instance, one per subscription or tenant, and pull the data in like that. So again, depending on your use case, but be careful because as I say, it's not very fine-grained configuration. So if you think, oh, I'm just going to have one of these and it's going to monitor all of my applications, you're probably going to get stuck, or it's going to monitor all your VMs, you're probably going to hit sort of massive costs. So I'm going to come over to one I made earlier. What's going on there again? So here's a Log Analytics workspace. Again, kind of confusing. So on the sidebar here, activity log, IAM tags, right? That's sort of just your general stuff. Locks, no, that's not interesting either. Quick start, not really. Logs, right? This is the thing you're interested in. This is where all your log data ends up. You can see here, like I showed with Data Explorer, there's a number of tables in Log Analytics. What you sort of get out of the box is this one. So this is the one for all of your VMs. So you're going to start collecting data from various different VMs and storing it in these different tables. Event being probably sort of the classic one, right? So this is going to be your event logs coming in from Windows, or sort of from Linux as well. You can add in additional solutions. I'm not going to go into that today, but there are this idea of sort of plugins here, add-ons that know how to collect certain data. So they give the Microsoft monitoring agent additional rules for collecting data, and it will end up in your database. But I won't go into those today. If you come down to virtual machines, this is where you can see which virtual machines are plugged into your Log Analytics workspace. So with a vanilla workspace, you're not going to be collecting any data, and this is going to show that none of your virtual machines are connected. This is quite nice. What it allows you to do is see every single virtual machine in your tenant here, filtered obviously by subscription, and you can see whether it's connected to this workspace or actually whether the VM is connected to another workspace. This is a little confusing. At a agent level, you can get a VM to report to multiple different workspaces, but it's not what the UI tells you. The UI makes you think you can only do one. I think I can explain that later why they've done that. So essentially they really only want you to have a VM reporting to one Log Analytics workspace, although it is possible to have multi-homing there. Again, you can do things like which storage accounts you're putting logs in from, and what Azure activity logs you're collecting as well. Okay, so those are the sort of three sort of classic sort of sources, data sources for Log Analytics. So that's looking at your data sources. That's where they end up. The other one I'm going to highlight, which again, coming back to the maze, you just wouldn't guess it's here. You're going to set up these virtual machines to report to Log Analytics, and you're going to start getting data. And then you're going to say, well, why is it collecting these 10 metrics? You know, where do I configure that? Yes, I want CPU, but I don't want disk space. You know, I want another metric. Or which Windows event logs is it collecting? And it's not obvious where you go for that. You certainly can't do that if you go down to a VM or in this view here. And actually, it's tucked away in this advanced settings. So this is the other panel that I'd point you towards when you do Log Analytics. It's a bit quirky. The last time I tried this on Chrome, it didn't work. It was only working in Edge, and it's because what they're doing here is they're embedding that old OMS UI into the new Azure portal. So this is actually, you know, an old bit of UI. It came from the OMS days, and they've just ported it over by embedding it into the portal here. So what we can see is we've got different types of connected data sources. You can go and manually download the agent and configure it to report to this workspace. So if it's in Azure, it's quite easy to set up a VM to report to this workspace. If it's in SCOM, you can just do a one-click report everything from SCOM through into Log Analytics, or you can manually download and do this. And this is the one I really want to point you towards, is the data. So this is where you find out what it's collecting. So it's not an obvious place to look, but this is really where you're configuring what logs and data you want to put in from your data sources. So with Windows event logs, this is where you would add in the different event logs you'd like to collect. So put in the name there, click plus. This is also where you'll see what performance metrics it's collecting and how often. So as I say, if I go and add in 100 different VMs here across my subscription, I will be collecting these metrics every minute for those 100 VMs, and you really can spend a lot. So be a bit careful, tune that down, decide what you want, and use Log Analytics carefully to segment ideally your VMs and your data collection. Same with IIS logs. So do you want IIS logs? Yeah, cool, sounds great. That's now going to be enabled for every single VM. I'm going to collect IIS logs from everywhere, and things like domain controllers. You start collecting generally sort of logs from domain controllers, not necessarily IIS, but also the event logs. You're going to end up filling your database and spending a lot of money. So that's where to explore that and to configure that. This does have a lot of data in, and it's pretty smart. A little bit like App Insights. Playing directly with KQL is quite hard. I don't want to really sort of type out a clever KQL query here just off the top of my head. It's quite hard to do that. So if you want to find some pre-canned queries and some nice, pretty results, the place to look here is Workbooks. So we looked at dashboards briefly. We looked at alerts. Workbooks are great. They're kind of really interesting. They're somewhere in between a dashboard and a report and a sort of a view. They're just available here. So for example, here I am in Workbooks for this, and I can look at some of these, some of these workbooks that are out of the box. Just going to choose Agent Health. And a little bit like a dashboard, it's going to have a number of tiles, all driven by KQL queries against those logs. We should get some interesting data. Come on. So a summary, I guess, and then we should have something like this. So you can start to do some really interesting visualizations here, where I've got a list of my VMs and I've got my key metrics and properties. There's a lot of different workbooks, and you can also, just like dashboards, create these through ARM templates. They're relatively sort of new and building in sort of visibility and interest in the community. So you'll see a lot more coming out. Again, just like with anything else, if you want to pin that, it says to the current dashboard. So that's where hopefully it's gone to the right dashboard. So I'm going to go click View Dashboard, and that should be in this dashboard we created earlier. Yeah, so if we had the CPU, we've got, let's just click, oops, I don't want to do that, let's just click Edit. So the CPU from earlier, we did that sort of the first time, and here's now our workbook. So when you see some really fancy dashboards, and I don't have the time, and Azure's not sort of working, behaving nicely enough for me to do this. But say, for example, in the meetup, I think it was Rich Conway there who added in a screenshot of a dashboard you can get. This is sort of how you build them, and generally there's some really nice visuals coming out of the run books. So that's sort of nice hexagonal status heat map, for example, is a particular run book. So you can start picking out some really nice visualizations from those run books and building out these dashboards. I'm just going to switch over to show you the dashboard you get, for example, when you deploy Parts Unlimited, just to give you an idea of what you can do with dashboards. So this is sort of out of the box with that ARM template. When I create this, I get this dashboard, and this is then the key metrics for that Parts Unlimited resource group that we saw. So failed requests, response time. You can see that when I mouse over, I can see I had high response time and failed requests at the same time. So I can start to kind of correlate what was going on there. And you can see they've used just some other little panels to give them titles and so on. So it is quite nice. You can start sort of building these dashboards. I find it a little bit clunky, a little bit hard to sort of navigate around, but the great thing is they're built into the Azure portal there. So that was a brief look at Log Analytics, what you can do. Sorry that we didn't sort of do more there, but kind of hopefully gives you a flavour of what you can collect. Last one is going to wrap it all off. Zone 6, Monitor, just Monitor. Look at App Insights. Monitor is an interesting one. Confused me the first time I saw it. You can just search for Monitor in your Azure portal. It is a global UI. So per tenant, right? You just go to one monitor. It's not a resource, it's just a thing baked into the Azure portal. So you go to Monitor and you have one UI now across everything we've just seen. So one UI across all of those metrics, logs, alerts, workbooks, and so on, across all of your resources. So whether that's the baked in platform metrics or your logs coming out of App Insights or your log analytics data, you're going to be able to query that in one place. So let me just give you a quick orientation of that. So we've been digging around and looking at different resources. It can be confusing if you come into Monitor. So there's only one. Just type in Monitor. We're now just in a UI here that's going to be very familiar. It's the UI we've looked at across those other resources. There's one place now to look at everything we might have set up. So alerts is going to show me the alerts I've created anywhere in my Azure subscriptions. Whether that's an alert on App Insights or an alert in Log Analytics, I'm going to be able to see it here and manage those rules. If I want to report on some metrics, I can do it here. It's going to ask me for a scope because I'm I'm just a global UI at this point, right? It doesn't know what I want to look at. So it's going to say select scope. So this is where we need to be a bit more careful. Do we want to select a particular resource and pull out those platform metrics because maybe we haven't enabled Log Analytics? Or do we want to point it at a Log Analytics or App Insights workspace because we do want to get those richer long-term values? So for example, if I search for that VM we looked at, so this is not enrolled in Log Analytics, so I can select that VM, hit apply, and you can see you can have multiple scopes there. And I'm back to where we started, right? I'm now looking at the platform metrics for this particular VM. But equivalently, I could have pointed it at a Log Analytics instance and looked at the performance metrics coming out of Log Analytics instead, those longer term. Same with logs. If I click on logs here, I can now connect to anywhere where logs are stored. So that's going to be any App Insights instance or any Log Analytics instance where we have logs. And it's going to ask me to do the same thing, select a scope. So here it's connected to Sandbox logs, but I could switch over to my Log Analytics instance and query out of that as well. And just to finish off, sort of an area, so slow. An area that I'm not going to really go much more into is we looked at the history of Azure Monitor and we saw there was something called App Insights, and that now is one of the main things we've looked at today. They've taken that Insights brand and created other different solutions. So App Insights is what we looked at earlier, and they've started to create out other insight solutions like virtual machines insights, containers insights, and so on. I'm not going to go into them today, but that's where they're sort of trying to build out much more sort of resource specific monitoring. So with virtual machines, hopefully what I'll see here is the sort of health stats that I'd want from a virtual machine. Is it, what is the CPU memory disk, right? Without having to collect that in a log, I just want to get some basic information from it. We also want a roll up of health, for example. So you're going to start to see more and more solutions coming out under these insights brands. The other one there was containers. So if you want just kind of more out of the box monitoring for your Kubernetes, you can head over and look at insights there and start adding in those solutions. So there's lots to Azure Monitor. We haven't even touched on Service Map. Last of all, just in slideware, we looked at this sort of overall UI for Monitor. I'm just going to kind of recap on alerts. The one great thing about Azure Monitoring is there is unified alerting. We recapped on this before. So for any resource, what's your conditions, what's your rules, and what action group do you want, whether that's an email or some sort of automation or other connection. Really great resource for that. Can you believe it? A 12-part blog series, and each blog is not short, I can tell you. That's over at cloudadministrator.net. I'd absolutely recommend checking that out if you want to know everything about Azure alerting. Really thorough. And then just finally, I know we're just a few minutes over time, I'm just going to wrap up with dashboard, because going back to the opening slides, we've talked about a lot about the observability and kind of collecting the data, but we really need to now make people aware of what's going on using that data and hopefully drive actions. We've looked at the Azure Monitor dashboards just briefly, but you can sort of see a nicer version of what you can achieve there. The other one you're probably familiar with is Grafana. And the third one, I've got to mention it, is SquaredUp. And I just wanted to kind of give you a quick idea of how these differ and where you should go. Like with a lot of the Azure monitoring features, the benefit of the dashboards there is it's built in. So if you live in the console, you want to just refer to data very quickly without having to dig around and do what we've just done. I'd recommend building one of those dashboards, or maybe those the workbooks. Grafana generally is known for its graphing ability. So if you just want much sort of higher resolution graphing and there's interactive graphing, Grafana is a great option. They do have an Azure Monitor plugin, so you can point Grafana at Azure Monitor and get out some basic information there. So the metrics and the logs. And then SquaredUp, where we really focus on is sharing, which is sort of going up that stack towards the control and the goals. So what we generally find with the two on the left is that they're great maybe for the developer or the SRE who knows what's going on, inside out with that application and just really needs to monitor every single detail. What they're not good at is surfacing that information to other teams within the organization, whether it's your support desk or your escalations team or your management team or your cloud architects, for example, who want to see what's going on across the organization. So that's where SquaredUp comes in. I'm going to just take the liberty of showing you just very briefly what SquaredUp can do. And one thing in particular, which is very different to anything we've just seen, we mentioned it in the first few slides and haven't mentioned it since, which is cost. One thing Azure Monitor does not do is tell you about where you're spending your money, which arguably is kind of one of the most sort of valuable things, so literally in terms of your business. What we do with SquaredUp, as well as integrating with Azure Monitor out of the box, we do integrate with things like Azure Cost Management, so you can very quickly see the breakdown of where you're spending the money. What are the largest resources? You'll find that the Log Analytics resource is going to be one of them. So that's the Log Analytics resource group. So that's where we're spending a lot of our money, is just collecting logs. So you can see that very, very quickly. And the other sort of main thing we do is that roll up. So if you want to show the health of multiple different applications in one view, maybe integrating data from your service desk and so on, or ping them, then you can do that as well with drill down. So this part's unlimited. So that's the application that we were looking at in the portal. I can start to build dashboards, very, very fast, intuitive, nice, easy to use dashboards that sort of have unlimited drill downs, right? So I can drill down now into these different resources to troubleshoot, and I can push these out to my other teams very easily to sort of allow them to troubleshoot what's going on. So that's just a little flavor of your dashboarding options and where SquaredUp fits into all of this. So with that, hopefully we've done a little bit of learning around Azure Monitor. I know it's a lot. I've gone very quickly. There's many different elements to it. I hope that when you make your run into the maze, some of these guidelines will give you just a little bit more chance of success. So good luck with the Azure Monitor maze. If you joined late, I'm just going to finish on this because I think it's really worthwhile. Azure Monitor Virtual Series, I've given you my perspective on Azure Monitor. If you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, go sign up for that. I'll paste this into the chat. I just want to sort of finish the presentation here. And if you want a lot more detail, I've given you one about KQL, Kusto 101 blog. I've given you some about the alerts. Go check out this. It covers every single aspect we've just looked at, but in much more depth. Thanks for hanging around. Sorry we started a bit late. Hope you're all well and cozy at home. It's got very dark here and just got a lamp on, so I hope I haven't disappeared entirely. But thank you very much for listening. If there are any other questions, I will hang around and take a Q&A. But thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Rich. Great talk. We've got a bunch of questions. Just so that I can do things in the right order and not forget. I'll just announce the two upcoming talks. The next talk we've got next week for any web developers and anybody interested in using a framework called Blazor and how that works with Azure and SignalR and real-time applications. And then actually quite topical given your mention of Azure Data Explorer, but we've managed to get the Uri Barash, the principal program manager of Data Explorer. So he's going to give us a talk from the 11th, probably the Wednesday of that week, about some of the new up and coming things. So if we could, there's a bunch of questions, so maybe we can go through these quickly. Somebody's asked if you get prompts on cost through the Azure portal if you start using Azure Monitor.
No, what sort of alerts on how much spending? Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? No, I mean, as far as I know, there's no integration between Azure Monitor and the cost management API. So what I showed you in SquaredUp there was us integrating directly with the cost management API. It differs depending on the subscription type you have with Azure. So we're pulling that data out and sort of visualizing it. There are dedicated tools all around cost management, a little bit sort of heavyweight. But yeah, wouldn't it be nice if Azure Monitor just told you that you could be saving a lot of money here? But no, it doesn't.
I think I knew the answer to that
That's a bit of
question
the
before I asked it. Okay, so somebody else wants to know, in a load balancer scenario, do you recommend using the same App Insights for all back-end pools?
I think in that case I would, just because you don't want to be trying to work out where to go, right? So that in that case, sort of you feel like that's more of kind of a single logical application or service. So yes, I would use a single App Insights for that.
Okay, I've got APIs seem to reflect the confused heritage of the product. Is there a combined API coming out?
Good question. Not that I know of. I mean, it's sort of when you dig into APIs, right? It's not just sort of the endpoints. So like each endpoint has a sort of slightly different characteristics. Things like selecting data. There is only data available for 7 days. You're only going to get that out of one API, not the other. So as you can see from the portal, it's built on top of the sort of fragmented APIs very much. I'm not sure whether there's any consolidated API coming out. I don't know the information to that. You probably do more than me, Rich.
Yeah, I'd have to listen for that, but no, I'm confused as well. But all of the APIs are converging quite nicely, and at least they're a single standard now. I remember when you used to have to post XML in some and JSON in others. So in the old days of Classic, so things are getting better. So Bav wants to know, how is SquaredUp's cost management better than Azure's cost management and billing section?
Yeah, as you saw some of the sort of visualizations there, but things like breaking it down by tags, so sort of by the hierarchical view against the resource type or by tag, allows you to very easily sort of locate a couple of things. It allows you to locate where your big spend is just visually, right? So see it as a big blob. It also, what's quite nice about it in SquaredUp is it brings the cost alongside the performance data. So what we like to do is point you towards things like zombie VMs, right? We all know them, right? We provision something, we're playing around, we've forgotten about it, it's costing us, and we never go back and clean it up. So by showing your sort of flatlining VMs that are using absolutely zero CPU but are costing you this much, you can very easily make those savings as well. And then the last piece I think is really relevant is, we all know this as well, which is, no developer in their right mind is going to not go for the biggest possible, resource and sort of size of VM, right? You'd be an idiot to say, no, I only need like the smallest one. So unfortunately, what happens is you've got the dev teams generally over consuming, over provisioning, and then you've got your centralized team trying to lock them down, right? And walk up to them and say, I've got a report. This tells me that you're potentially spending a lot. So first of all, you need to see it alongside the performance data, but also what you want to do is make it a little bit more collaborative and self-service. So you want those individual dev teams to see their spend, to see that against performance, and everyone's got that same view. So it's not necessarily about like what data can and can't you see, it's sort of how you see it, what the context is, and who can see it. You're not going to get many developers looking at the cost management and billing sections in the Azure portal, I can tell you.
Got you. Casper wants to know what your recommendation is on reporting alerts to Slack. He says he's only been able to find guides on how to do it using Logic Apps.
Yeah, good one. I've actually literally been doing this just earlier this week. You've got the action group can post out to an HTTP endpoint, typically known as a webhook, right? So just sort of post some data to some HTTP endpoint, or it can kick off Azure automation. On the Slack side, Slack's quite nice. It's just essentially you can have a webhook sitting there ready to receive a message, right? So you can just say, send a message into Slack. What you need to do is build a bit in between. You can't typically have that webhook firing out of Azure Monitor and it just landing directly into Slack and something sensible happening, right? Slack doesn't know about how to interpret those different incoming queries. So you do need that glue in between. And actually the answer is there's just like, there's 100 different ways of building that glue, right? If you're going to be in Azure, you can do it with Azure automation. You can do it with an Azure function, right? So the HTTP webhook is just your Azure function, and your Azure function is going to take that data, reformat into a different bit of JSON and post it off to Slack. I actually tend to use, there's lots out there. I quite like Zapier or Zapier. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with it, but it's just super easy to use. So that has a incoming webhook and it's got a direct integration with Slack. So there you just say, receive some data, and it can show you your Azure alert as it comes in, and then you can construct your Slack message. You can post it to a particular person or channel and so on. So that's where they've got sort of a bit more packaged up integration with Slack that makes it a lot easier. So I know it's just a particular sort of vendor and a particular sort of suggestion, but Zapier is something I use, and it's sort of free when you do it at a small level, but you can probably get a better feeling of what you can do with that before then sort of maybe automating that yourself in Azure.
Okay, so we've got an anonymous question. Someone wants to know what's your opinion on Microsoft's App Center and how that relates to Azure App Insights?
Yeah, I don't do so much on the security center side, but there is a lot of overlap. So for example, Azure Sentinel, my understanding is built on top of Log Analytics, right? So actually the logs that are coming in on Azure Sentinel are actually being underpinned by Log Analytics. You can go and see them through Log Analytics, right? And you can build, all the same kind of queries and stuff that you can do that we've just seen today. So what you do generally find is that a lot of this underlying sort of platform technology is being shared, but it's then just being presented differently through the portal. So I'm not so sort of familiar with all the Azure Security Center pieces, but you certainly will find things like Sentinel are actually Azure Log Analytics kind of wrapped up with a different solution.
Oh, it's just they've just said App Center. Oh,
App Center.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I saw Security Center there as well. Answer, I don't know. I'm afraid. That's a part of the maze that I haven't yet explored.
Yeah. Okay. Fair dues. Sorry about that. And one other question, which is, what's the that is the question that you answered. What's the maze relationship between Azure Monitor and Azure Security Center?
Okay,
Yeah, the other one was App Center and App Insights. Yeah, no, I can't. I've never used App Center, so
I know. So again, a little actually history on App Insights was that it was. Am I getting this right? I have a feeling it was actually tied into Visual Studio Online at some point. But that's definitely where they've sort of come from, right? So they'd be much more thinking about that Visual Studio developer experience. So in Visual Studio itself, for example, if you create a new ASP.NET web application, there'll be a checkbox just to say and enable App Insights, right? You just click that checkbox and it's going to be done for you. So that is typically the focus is those things. So yeah, I'm not familiar with App Center, but I would assume it's sort of tied in with that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think we're all out of questions and we're all out of time, but I really think that was a fantastic talk. We've got this recorded now, so we'll be putting this on the YouTube channel, and I'll send the link around through Meetup. So if anybody didn't catch it, then hopefully they can catch it on the rerun. Or what I'll do is Rich, if you're okay, I'll pass your slides and maybe your social media details so that people can get in touch with you directly if they want to talk to you about what you've spoken about tonight or SquaredUp, and that'll be great. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Stay safe. Look forward to joining the next one virtually.
Definitely. Take care.
All right. Cheers.